Hey, welcome back to KG Law. I'm Kelly Biggle Green, the owner and founder of KG Law, located here in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Anything that we talk about is going to be Michigan specific, although most states are fairly similar, and it will kind of give you a starting point in asking questions for the lawyer you determine to hire. So let's talk a little bit in a divorce situation. How do we divide assets and liabilities? Michigan is not a community property state. Some are. In a community property state, you start off on the premise that everything is split down the middle, 50-50. Michigan is not like that, although in some ways it's similar. We're what's called an equitable division of assets state. So in my state here, we look at we look at more of the bigger picture, but we want to look at, okay, what are all of the assets? What were the assets coming into the marriage versus those that were accrued in the marriage? And what are the debts that were before marriage and coming into marriage? And what are they? What are they comprised of? So let's start off with debts first. I always think that's a little bit easier because everybody's worried about, not everybody, but a lot of my clients are concerned about how much debt are they going to have to take away. In order to establish that, let's do a hypothetical. Person A, I have a stay-at-home parent who's been a stay-at-home parent for, let's say, 10 years, has a high school degree or diploma. Person B is an executive at a company, maybe one of the car companies. Auto is big here in my area, so that's not unlikely. And let's say they're earning six figures, they have a degree. These were high school sweethearts who got married, and person A supported person B going to college. Person A didn't because of whatever reason, and it's been the primary parent. So I have to look at, when I'm doing an evaluation of assets and debts, first of all, person B probably has student loans, maybe not, but if they do, person B should take on their student loans. That's generally the rule. The person who incurred the student loan will take on the student loan regardless of both sides. But then I have to say, okay, person A potential earning capacity right now is kind of low. Now maybe with some support, that person can come up, they can finish their degree or whatever, and can come up. But person B is a high earning potential and is currently earning potential. Earning those high dollars, maybe not having a whole lot of room for growth, but is now earning, let's say, six figures or close to, and that. So when I look at an equitable division, a 50-50 split in that case is not going to be equitable. It's not going to be fair. Person B probably is going to end up taking on more of the debt that was occurred during the marriage than person A, and that's because they have a better chance of not only paying it back, but paying it back at a point where it's not going to be detriment to the customer of what they're used to living. So we look at that. We look at, was the debt incurred during the marriage, and what was it for when we're dividing it? Did person B run up the credit card because they were buying the mistress flowers and jewelry and stuff? Well, then person A shouldn't be liable to pay that. But if person A ran up the credit card because they were paying for the new roof on the house and they were paying for Johnny and Susie's clothes for school and backpacks and stuff like that, well, then that should be divided somehow. And that percentage could be, is what we worry about then. Again, student loans usually go to the person who incurred the student loan. Car debt. Car debt generally follows where the car is going. So, person B drives a classic car, at least during the summer, because you're probably not going to drive a classic car here in winter in Michigan because of salt. But person B has fancy sports car, let's say, that is worth more, but also has a car payment. Well, the car payment's going to follow the car. Person B maybe drives a little bit older, but it's a minivan and it has no debt. Well, it makes sense, but that's what they are used to driving. So person A is going to keep that, and person B is going to keep their sports car with their debt associated. Um, Again, credit cards, we look at kind of what they were used for when we divide that up. And that's how we do a lot of the debt and asset. So again, we're going to look at when was it incurred and why was it incurred. And that's how we're going to kind of divide equitably here in Michigan. The other thing that we're going to consider is the length of the marriage. If I have a longer term marriage, that's going to be a lot more complex because usually more things are commingled and things like that. If I've got a short term marriage, it's generally a lot easier to divide assets and liabilities because it is more likely that those things were incurred before the marriage actually happened. And we look at a date of actual marriage. It doesn't matter if the parties lived together beforehand. That's not the issue. The issue is the date of marriage. And that's key for a lot of things. You could have been together 20 years, but if you've only actually been married 2 years, the court is looking at a very short-term marriage. So when they're dividing equitability and things like that. We also look at things like, okay, maybe they're taking a lot of the debt, but maybe we can offset some of that debt by them being awarded more of the tangibles in the marriage and things like that. So some of the things that we recommend here is that during the pendency of the divorce, while we sort out things, that we kind of freeze joint assets. So joint accounts, especially after divorce, obviously those are going to be divided. We're going to freeze or close credit cards that are shared because, again, we don't want one person running them up and then saying, well, hey, we have to split this 50-50. That's not how we're going to work that. If things are really tricky, we'll call in financial people that can kind of do a forensic audit. That's generally not needed for the average divorce here in Michigan that I've had experience doing over the last 20 years. That's not to say that we can't and we don't, because we do. And we will if it's needed. So what I recommend for my clients coming in is just start making a list, because when you're in my office, people are nervous talking to lawyers. It's generally why when I do a consult, I'm dressed a little bit more casually. My office is built and set up so that you're more comfortable and relaxed, because the more relaxed you are and not worried and freaking out, then the more information I'm able to gather sooner. But if when you come to do a consult with me, if you could bring a list of all of your assets, where there's stocks, bonds, 401ks, retirement plans, if there's a life insurance plan, any credit card debt, your joint and individually owned banking accounts, or at least where they are, titles to cars. A lot of that information I'm going to tell you right now is in last year's tax forms. If you are really good about doing your taxes or have an accountant that does your taxes, a lot of that information can be found right there. So if you can bring me a copy of your last year's or even the last 3 years tax returns, I can kind of figure out a lot of things out of that. So I highly recommend bringing those. If you don't have a copy of your own tax returns, you can contact the 1-800 number at the IRS, and I believe you can do this online, and request a transcript copy. A lot of times if you set an appointment at your local office, knowing that that's what you want, and let them know ahead of time, you can actually just kind of pick it up. If you don't have a tax return, that's great. The more knowledge, though, that you can bring down in written form is a lot better. It makes my time more efficient, and then you're not running up my bill trying to sort out, like, okay, well, where what is this? Where is this kind of thing? And those are some of the things I recommend. So again, we're here in Michigan. You're going to find we look at equitability and fairness an equitable division of assets and liabilities. We are not um, a 50-50 automatically division of property in this state. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to KG Law. Thank you.